How are you all doing? Come on, y'all. I came from Atlanta. You got to do better than that. How y'all doing? All right. Well, on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration and my boss, Administrator Michael Regan, I'm very proud to not only be here before you today, but as the first black male to run the Environmental Protection Agency in the Southeast. I'm very proud to represent a space that represents 56% of our nation's historically black colleges and communities where environmental justice has been a priority, climate resilience has been a priority, and to the descendants of this film, to those of you who are here, to those that make up, as my grandfather, who was a diplomat to the United Nations, would say, we're well able to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own. And there's a Native American proverb that says, and this is really important for this special moment that I think is here. We do not inherit the planet from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And I think today is about the next generation. It's about what we saw in the film. It's about our ability to support these efforts, but also our ability to fundamentally transform where we are and also where we're going. Michael Regan, who is my boss and the first black man to lead the entirety of the EPA, is also an alum of an HBCU, North Carolina A&T. I'm an alum of Clark Atlanta University. Shout out to Howard University being right in our backyard, and so many other HBCUs, but I'm gonna keep this really simple. Where do we go from here? A great question that many of us had faced, where in some instances land and homes were passed down generation to generation, but too many of those who represent the best of what we have to offer have inherited poverty, have inherited a lack of resources. And I'm very proud to be a part of an administration that has prioritized $1.2 trillion in the bipartisan infrastructure law with what is in place called Justice 40 to commit a significant amount of funding to opportunities not just like this, but when you think about the impact of environmental justice, not just in Mobile, Alabama, and Africatown, but in Lowndes County, Alabama, in Jackson, Mississippi, all over the United States where we've seen time after time commitments made that have not always been resolved. I'm very proud to say that over $5 billion has been committed through this administration through our Clean Bus program, $3.5 billion for brownfields, $60 billion, well almost $60 billion, $50 billion for water infrastructure. These numbers mean absolutely nothing if we don't take our responsibility as an administration to focus fundamentally on how we're going to transform communities and build a better generation for those of you that are here. In addressing these issues, some of the fundamental challenges that we have are making sure that when we see movies like this that inspire us and that challenge us, we also remember the tremendous responsibility that all of us share in transforming a future. This is, in my opinion, the first generation that can fundamentally address and eradicate poverty. But it's also the first generation that has experienced the tremendous impacts of climate change, and the last generation, arguably, that can deal with it and that can deal with those issues. But when you look at a film like this in closing, and you see the challenges that we're faced throughout this space and what we're dealing with, the question you have to ask is, what is your role and what is your responsibility, whether you are a descendant or you're someone that has literally stood on the shoulders of your ancestors. And for all of us that are here today in this historic place, it reminds me of a quote that I'll leave you with from my mentor, the Congressman John Lewis, who had spent such a tremendous amount of time in my life and prepared me for where I am today, in which he said, ours is not the struggle of one day, 1 week, or 1 year. Ours is not the struggle of one judicial appointment or one presidential administration. Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe many lifetimes. These areas that have challenged us have also opened the door for each of us to take the personal responsibility it takes to leave this room and to educate our communities, to work with the federal family in a sense of how we can be accountable and responsible to that which we'll do to you and for you and to our communities. But more than anything else, in how we're able to restore underserved communities, areas that have been left out, communities that have had a legacy of challenges that range from pollution and environmental justice to multiple areas that I believe this panel that I'm going to introduce can begin to solve.